Over the lifetime of this channel, there's an unspoken fact that you tend to know, and for people who don't play EU4 could probably guess. The majority of the EU4 fanbase are men. Over the last 365 days, which is roughly when we restarted the channel, 98% of the people watching us are from male accounts, and 2% are from female accounts. In numbers, that is 10.68 million views from men, and 218,000 views from women. Considering most of the videos of this channel are EU4 videos, you can come to the obvious conclusion that the fanbase is almost completely made up of men. Although clearly there's a decent size of women who do play EU4, the likelihood of an EU4 player being a man is far higher. The question therefore I'm curious about is, why is this the case? And what are the interesting reasons behind it? Now obviously, the data I collected is from a biased source, since my channel views will not completely line up with the demographics of the EU4 fanbase. But this is also very similar to the EU4 Reddit census data, and nevertheless, it is what we have to go off on. I don't think that if you put "you are an EU4 master" in your Tinder profile, many people, and particularly girls, would have a clue what you're on about. Best not to do that then. The more interesting data for me though, is that according to Statista, 45% of gamers in the United States are women, and a similar trend can be seen also in the UK, clearly showing a stark contrast to the player base of EU4. I'd also like to thank you so much for 70,000 subscribers. We have an interesting 100k special planned, so make sure to subscribe in case you missed that. And without further ado, let's get into the video of why there's such a high gender disparity, and what are the reasons for it. I first want to talk about the researched reasons for why women play less games than men in general. Over the past 2 decades, the number of female gamers have increased dramatically, particularly in mobile gaming, and therefore there's been a lot of studies on this trend. Doing a bit of research myself, I found a good paper that put all the academic findings together. One key fact they found that might be relevant to EU4 is that the low levels of female gaming may be due to its violence, which is quite common in many shooting games, like Grand Theft Auto 5. And this paper suggests that girls may play games less due to the aggression required by video games. In other words, girls may be put off more by the fact you have to kill people in Grand Theft Auto than boys. Is this true though? I really cannot see how video game violence has any relevance to EU4. And the fact that GTA 5's audience members are 50% female, it just goes to show that it's not a significant reason for the low levels of girls playing EU4. What other reasons did they come up with then? Another reason they found was that female gamers tend to play less than male gamers due to gender expectations and peer community, and therefore the volume of gameplay was viewed as dominant by men. This might have a bit of relevance to EU4. Maybe we can get somewhere here. We know EU4 is one of the more complicated games out there, and to play it and gain enjoyment out of it, you need to spend a large amount of time playing it. Even a few hundred hours in the game is nowhere near the level you need to play at to be competitive in multiplayer. Therefore, maybe it could be argued that because of this study, girls are less likely to play EU4, since they play for less time and get less enjoyment out of it. I personally am a little skeptical of this assumption though. Can this small study, with a whole host of biases, really solely prove a reason why there's a gender disparity in EU4? The answer for me personally is no. And EU4 is complicated in general for the average person. Most people would find it too complicated to play, and move on to a simpler game, which is why something like Fall Guys is much easier and more mainstream. One of the last reasons they give that we're going to discuss is online harassment of female players, and that gaming companies don't specifically target female motivations of gaming. For the online harassment part of EU4, I personally don't think I'm able to meaningfully discuss this aspect. And for the last part, I'd say it's probably not too relevant within the niche of strategy gaming, and it doesn't particularly target mainstream needs of gamers. So clearly, none of these reasons for me give you any sound explanation as to why there's a gender disparity in EU4. And this has left me a little off guard. I then proceeded to ask one of my girlmates who games from time to time why girls don't play EU4, and this was her response, which let's just say she was a little confused and even accused me of having other motivations. I can't imagine what EU4 Tinder would be like. Then it hit me though, what if EU4 has been targeted and marketed at men for some time, and it hasn't changed for a while? So for now, more looking at EU4, is there a specific reason as to why maybe the genre of the game causes its gender disparity? Grand strategy games have been dominated by men for decades, and unlike other gaming genres that may have now gotten vastly different gender balances, historical grand strategy games still have a similar difference. Perhaps because of this, the marketing of Europa Universalis 4 has been geared towards men. For example, there's no woman on the box of the game, which some would say it proves the point. Speaking to a girl who's played EU4 for a few thousand hours, she does mention that the main branding of EU4 is mainly these male explorers, and she said it would be more appealing to her to have some of the DLC woman portraits be on the main branding of EU4, like Catherine the Great or Isabel of Castile. But we are aware that Paradox have released a DLC entirely dedicated towards women, which is Women in History, and therefore this partially counteracts that argument. Also, would women simply not buy the game because there's only men on the cover? Seems like quite a shallow reason not to buy a game, and has no relevance to the gameplay. It's also unlikely that Paradox would intentionally market towards men and disenfranchise women from playing it. It simply doesn't make sense from a business perspective. So as far as I could see, none of the marketing reasons made any clear sense as to why there's a gender disparity in EU4. But it hit me again. If we move away from the gaming aspect itself and focus entirely on the historical side of it, maybe we will get our answer. Another potential reason, therefore, may be that men are more interested in the history of the 15th century, and therefore are more likely to buy the game based on this fact. What proof do we have of this though? Over the past few decades, gender disparity in history degrees has become non-existent, and more women are studying history in universities. This obviously isn't a clear representation of society as a whole, and doesn't eliminate it as a reason, but clearly, the idea that interest in history is extremely skewed towards men over women is false. Maybe the niche of military history entices men over women, but I haven't been able to find any sort of evidence to back this up, and I don't think the historic nature of the game can completely explain the gender disparity of EU4. So, after a long-winded journey of exploration and circumnavigating the globe several times to try and find answers, there isn't a particularly strong answer to the gender disparity of EU4, and perhaps there's a whole host of reasons, from the academic side, to the marketing side, and finally to the history side. I personally believe this is the case, and as time goes by, the gender disparity will change and become less skewed. Maybe I'm completely wrong though, and I'm missing something entirely. Only time will tell whether I'm proven right or wrong. This has been probably one of the harder topics of videos I've done, so it'd be great to get your opinions in the comments about this. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now.